In this video, we're going to take a look at a blue ink by Noodlers in their luxury line, Periwinkle. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the blue ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's take a look at the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading that is going on in the stub. In the extra fine, it's giving some nice shading, though it is quite a bit lighter than the stub, and it shades a little bit, very little bit, but it is there, that tiny bit, in the medium, which is the darkest tone on the page. The extra fine took 2 seconds to dry, while the medium took 1 second to dry. The scrubby for both show color variation. We're definitely getting it in the writing, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a TWSBI Mini with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for the video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. There's a little bit of shade that occurs in the extra fine, and there is a tiny bit that occurs in the medium that's the same tone as, there's a little bit that occurs in the extra fine that's the same tone as the stub. The medium, which is darker, also shows the greatest amount of tone variation. It really has some nice, very dark spots that are occurring throughout it. Great. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while the medium took 9. The scrubby for both do show some color variation. It's definitely there, and especially in the medium. In the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And you see this is really one dye that's there to make this, and it's pushing its way and gathering very heavily at its top, although it looks kind of strange the way it's getting there. Now the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes, and in only 10 minutes it's completely bonded with the filter paper, not budging, really showing how resistant this ink is going to be. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen, very, very little peppers of shading throughout the stub and extra fine that are the same tone. The medium, that's much darker, has much better shading all the way through it. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while medium took 6. Both scrubbies show some color variation, but it's stand out better in that medium. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it's just a very light tone, but none of it is moving after it's been highlighted. Not a surprise from the chromatography. Water did absolutely nothing to this ink, and neither did pen flush, not even bleach. None of it had anything to do with moving this ink. Now, Noodlers has a bad reputation, but this ink only took water to get out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We do this not to see any kind of performance change, but much more to see tone changes that go on. Now, it does lighten up a little bit, but it doesn't go from being a blue towards being a green or a turquoise. This is a very opaque ink. You could get away in a professional environment on yellow paper and still have blue. Very strong ink here. Quite opaque. For the inks tested, the average viscosity is 2.5, and the realm of normal is 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Periwinkle has a viscosity of 2.29, so it's normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity test is done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now, let's take a look at a composition notebook like you would have used in your science lab class. We have no bleeding through the page, but it's getting very deep with the medium, which causes a lot of ghosting there, but not with the extra fine. Looking at the two of them, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Now the extra fine is a lot lighter than the stub, probably too light than the medium, probably too light for me to comfortably use. It took 2 seconds to dry. The scrubby showed no color variation in it. We didn't get any there, but the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time is 17 seconds, and the realm of normal is 13 to 21 seconds. Noodler's Periwinkle has an average dry time of 6 seconds, so it is a very fast drying ink. The last writing sample is done on 20-pound copy paper. We get bleeding that's heavy into the paper, but not through the paper. I do think that this would stop me from using it because of the extreme amount of ghosting that it causes, even with the extra fine. None of it gets to touch that page underneath. Now, this is 20-pound copy paper, notoriously bad. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. It actually performs very well despite its very light tone here in the extra fine, quite a bit lighter than the medium. 1 second to dry. Scrubby shows a tiny bit of color variation, but it's not there. You can't smear it, so you don't have to worry about it. Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's Periwinkle, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a magenta ink by Diamine, their Merlot. If you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Noodler's luxury line Periwinkle? I am not a fan of this color. It's Periwinkle, and it's just not a color I care for. And yet, we'll be using up a bottle eventually. The burping from the beginning is something I've experienced in a few pens and don't know why. I'm not a fan. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? Now, I experienced burping with a few different pens that were not eyedroppers, which was very unusual. With that, what I think you would want to use is a very dry, fine, or extra fine. But then it's going to put down an incredibly light tone. So if you have a better suggestion of a pen for this ink, let me know down in that description. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Sailor Kobe Swanayama Leaf, or their number 35.